probably dead. His body will come popping up in the last reel somewhere. Eyes gouged out, fingers cut off, teeth knocked out. See, the police are always off track with this shit. If they watch prom night, they'd save time. There's a formula to it. A very simple formula. Everybody's a suspect.
Here's Johnny. Groovy.
Yo, welcome back to the Fandom Frequency Network, y'all. It's your boy Kenny bringing you another spoiler-filled review for the spooky season of 2022, y'all. If you haven't subscribed already and you're new to the channel, make sure you go ahead and click that thing, man. The channel has been growing quite a bit lately, man, and it's all thanks to you beautiful people out there that are already part of our dope Fandom Frequency community. So if you want to be a part of that, discuss all the nitty-gritty stuff of the movies and the TV shows and everything we be breaking down in the world of pop culture, make sure you click all the buttons and all that. If you're listening on the podcast feed to all our other content and everything like that, make sure you're clicking the download wherever you listen to your audio. But with no further ado, y'all, let's get into the topic of the day. It is the latest installment of the Hellraiser series. Not quite a remake, not quite a reboot, or more of a reboot, not quite a remake, not exactly a sequel. Hellraiser 2022, released on Hulu, not in theaters except for the lucky few people that I think that went to Fantastic Fest over there in Austin, Texas. So other than those select few lucky fans that got to attend that festival, no one else in the world saw this particular film in the theaters. Straight to streaming on this one. And for all you fellow horror nerds out there, like myself, you're very well aware that the Hellraiser franchise is not necessarily known for having the highest quality films out of the 10 previous installments. Most people say there's about maybe 2 to 4 good movies in that franchise, the original being the Universal one. And some people like 2, 3, and Inferno as well. I've heard some people really dig that one. But other than those particular sequels, the rest of them are complete garbage or just ain't quite hitting the mark. So this one didn't really have high expectations for it from most of the fan base out there, as some of you already know. I didn't have high expectations for it. I've never really been a huge Hellraiser fan per se either. I definitely dig the original, respect the original, definitely a classic, but never really had as much of interest to check out the sequels because I just don't hear as good of things about them. But 2 and 3 definitely have my interest the most, so I might get around to doing that someday. But at the moment, not really huge into Hellraiser, but I was curious about this one. Going into this one, you have a really great director behind the camera that they hired for this one, in David Bruckner, who's got some really dope credits to his name, such as The Ritual, I believe, over there on Netflix as well. Another streaming movie right there. I believe, let me see here. Let me double check here. Let me see here. David Bruckner. Let's see. I know there's some other stuff I've seen. Oh, yeah, he did one of the segments in VHS. He also directed The Night House, I believe, which was actually a really, really dope film. Let me double check that, but I believe he directed that. Yeah, he directed that. Really dope film with starring Rebecca Hall. Awesome, awesome fucking film. And The Ritual, as I mentioned before. And he also did Beyond the Gates, which that was a pretty interesting film in and of itself as well. Or he didn't direct that one, but he was involved in it. But that one was pretty interesting as well. But he has some pretty damn good credits to his name, so I was very curious to see what he was going to do with this particular installment, man, because there's nowhere to go but up. So is it a lot more up than down? Yeah, for sure. But overall, for me personally, this one is a big old meh. I wasn't exactly super duper like impressed or like blown away with this one. But getting into more of the positives before I get into the negatives of it, overall, I really dug what they were doing with the Cenobites. They were well done, man. They looked creepy as hell. They had new designs that were really awesome and effective. They brought back some of the old designs, like Pinhead, obviously, with the Hell Priest, played by Jamie Clayton. We'll get to her in a bit as well in these positives and some of the mixed things there. But She was awesome in design wise, and then the Chatterer, that guy, he looked pretty awesome as well. And but they mostly had a lot of new Cenobites. And another new element that they added to the lore of this film that I absolutely loved was the brand new configurations for the Lament configuration. I really dug how you had all these different forms and all this different stuff, and it went into like these 6 or 7 different phases or whatever. I thought that was really, really dope and something very, very creative and innovative, and not innovative, but something really interesting that they brought to the table for this film. So I thought that was a really, really, really cool element there. Overall, too, I really liked the kills and stuff like that. Like when it came to the opening sequence where one of the main characters and one of the few characters in this film that I absolutely dug and really, really enjoyed was Vought. He was played by, let me see here, Goran Viznik. Probably butchered that, but he was awesome as Vought, and he was this dude that was into the occult and collecting artifacts and things from that nature. And he had the Lament configuration in the opening sequence of the film. He's summoning the freaking Cenobites, and they're over there throwing the chains and shit like that, and over there just doing their thing right there at the beginning of the film. I thought that was so dope. And when it came to some of the other kills in there, like when the Cenobite showed up, and then they actually ended up taking his ass near the end of the film, and he went into the light or whatever, and then he ended up going into their so-called hell or wherever dimension they took him to, and now they're turning him into a Cenobite, and then all his skin is getting ripped off and shit like that, and then his mouth is getting tore open and everything. I was like, whoa, man, that was fucking gnarly, and that was crazy. Or even when they just tore all the skin off a homegirl's boyfriend's arm, I was like, oh man, like, and then that's not even the end of it. Not necessarily a kill, but one of the other elements to it that I really dug was they had like this rear torture device hooked to Vought near the second half of the film, where it was like pulling on all his nerves and everything, and then you could see the tendrils getting pulled and everything, and I was like, oh, and it was like lodged into his chest, and it went through through his torso, from his chest through to his back, and I was like, oh, like the psychological factor of seeing the pain that it was inflicting, and the thought of what it would feel like and what it's doing is just like, ooh, like that definitely got under my skin. So they were really doing pretty well in that department, and just in the kills and the scares, and then just the icky factor, you know what I'm saying? It's not quite as effective as the original 87 flick, but it's really hard to get back to that raw feeling that you got from that original film. But they did a pretty good job here of using the practical effects, very little CGI to really get their point across, and all the freaking Cenobites there towards the second half, or in the third act towards the end, when they're going after what the hell was her name, man? I'm already forgetting these characters' names. That should tell y'all something, but we'll get into that. Riley and all them, and all that going down. I thought that was really cool, how the Cenobites were just closing in closer and closer, and they just looked so disgusting and creepy looking, man. Like, that was well done, man. And just the overall production value of the movie is well done, and the cinematography, the score was really well done, and reminded me of that original film and that original score, in a sense of just the vibe that it was setting with that. And I thought they did a great job with integrating the sound that kind of just makes this movie fit right in with the rest of the franchise in a good way. And while the Hell Priest didn't blow me away, while Jamie Clayton didn't necessarily blow me away, I thought she did a decent job with the material, but getting into some of those mixed elements there, I didn't think she necessarily got quite there and had enough of that. I don't know, enough of that intimidation factor, or like the gravitas that someone like Doug Bradley was bringing to the role originally. She doesn't quite have that, or her own kind of charisma that's kind of kind of giving the character that extra boost, you know what I'm saying? That extra impact and all that. But she wasn't bad or anything like that. Wasn't embarrassing or bad in the role. So she was good, but I didn't think she was quite as great as I was hoping or really wanted to see, honestly, just out of the movie. That was really my only expectation out of it. And she was okay. And I didn't think they necessarily executed the Hell Priest in the story as effectively as they could have, and didn't have that overall looming presence of the Hell Priest as much. So I thought that wasn't necessarily done as well either. And then just getting into some of those negatives, dude. This movie is way too fucking long, man. At 2 hours, it is way too long. It is so slow paced. It really just drags on for too long, especially towards the second half of or in that first half of the movie, really. And I was just like, damn, dude, like by the time we got to the third act, I was already like checking my watch, like checking the clock, man. Like, damn, how much longer we got of this thing? Because it took so long for it to really get going and get the Cenobites in there that really dragged down a lot of my enjoyment with this movie. And the characters aren't that likable necessarily. And that's kind of par for the course with Hellraiser characters in the sense that you're not necessarily rooting for them in that way. They're not lovable characters, but I just thought that the way they were written and the way that they were just whiny and annoying and kind of stoops, and then just the overall convoluted nature as well of the way that they just had to stab someone else and they could transfer the curse over to somebody else or whatever. I thought that was lame and very convoluted and didn't necessarily gel with the rest of the franchise the way that they maybe would have intended it to. And I thought that was one of the few elements to the lore that they added that they definitely could have took that out and left that out. I wasn't really feeling that. And yeah, but overall, those were some of my only few negatives. They just didn't necessarily, way too long. The pacing really drags down the enjoyment, man. This movie could have been a solid 80, 90 minutes, and you would have got the point. It was far too long, man, and it really, really sucked out a lot of my enjoyment and really is just meh. Like, overall, this movie is just a big old meh to me. There's a lot of good about it, a lot more good than bad, but overall, it's not something that I have a lot of interest in revisiting. I didn't necessarily have that much enjoyment watching it. It's okay. It's whatever. I'll give it a 6.5 out of 10. This one just really wasn't doing it for me and was just slightly disappointing because kind of hearing a little bit of the reception going into it, it seemed like this was going to be something had a little more punch to it, a little more of that to it, but it was just way too long, and just didn't really have good enough characters to really get invested or connected with, or didn't have a strong enough final girl, and just wasn't really hitting for me like that. But I want to hear from y'all down in the comments section below. What were y'all feeling with this new Hellraiser? Did you love it? Did you hate it? Did you fall somewhere in between like me? I want to hear from y'all, and we can get into a discussion down below. Make sure you guys don't miss out on any of the other spooky season content we got. We got horror content coming at you every week. But don't forget, we also got TV episode recaps going at you every week with all the big shows on right now. And we got some other stuff planned up our sleeve that's going to come and surprise you. Black Adam right around the corner and all that. So make sure y'all stay tuned. Don't sleep. And we going to see y'all around here real soon. Peace.